So, as I was about to say, welcome, and I don't see comments straight away, so if you are joining us, especially for the first time, please say hello and let me know that you're visiting. I'd love seeing where people are also from. Hi Shelley, thanks for joining us today. Let's get started. So I'm going to flip this camera over, and hopefully today we're going to make a fun strippy card. So let me just turn this over, so bear with me 1 second. Okay, so I hope you can see that. Okay, I'm just waiting for that to appear on my tablet. Yes, so this is the card we're going to have a go at making today, or I'm going to replicate it today. So this is a really good card if you've got lots of scraps of you could use designer series paper, you could use just plain cardstock as I've used here. So there's lots of things you can do to make this card, and I've actually cased this card from Jennifer Maguire, that a video I watched of hers this morning, and I thought, well, I can do something similar to that using our Stampin' Up products. So that's where I got my idea from, and we're going to give this a go again, and I might even just change up my embossing folder, because I don't know whether you can see that, but I've adhered strips of cardstock across the width of the card, but I've also embossed it, so it just gives you a different element of texture in that as well. So we're going to use the same dies from the Artistically Inked bundle, but I thought we might change the embossing folder. I've just got them here. The one I used for this card was actually the Ornate Floral 3D embossing folder, and I thought what we might do is try it with the Painted Texture embossing folder, because there's a lot of floral in this, and I just sort of thought, well, this could be just a little bit overpowering. So we'll see how we go and see how it comes up, and I'm sure it's going to look great. So let's get started with this card. So let me pop that one to one side. So what you need for this is lots of strips of cardstock, except for that little bit of black in there. We don't need that. I'll get rid of that into our bin. And what I've done is I've cut these strips at about 1/2 centimetre to 1 centimetre in width, and I've chosen 4 colours, and the colours I've got here are Granny Apple Green, Daffodil Delight, Polished Pink, and Bermuda Bay. So they're the 4 colours that we're going to have a play with, and I've just, admittedly, I put all 4 strips together and put them in my trimmer and cut all 4 together. It probably actually only cut it through 3 layers successfully, and then I had to recut the bottom layer again. So you know, but I mean, any little scraps that you've got left over, if you collect your scraps, I don't tend to not to collect them, so I sort of had to sit here and cut them up. But any scraps that you might have, and you know, you can put multiple colors into this if you want to. You know, you don't have to use just 4 colors, but I wouldn't go too overboard because we're only laying down a few of the stripes, so that we need that. We also need a piece of A4 photocopy paper, and I've just cut this down to 1/4 of a sheet, which is your 14.9 centimeters by your 10.5. Just a piece to play with. We're also going to be using, I'm going to have a card base in the Polished Pink. We also need a scrap of our black for our sentiment. Need a piece of basic white for our die cut of our flowers, our floral die cut. I'm also going to use some of our adhesive sheet, and we're going to put a little bit of bling by using the Ink Color Jewels. So that's all the products we'll be using today. I will go through measurements with this with you as we go through. It's a little bit different to what I would normally do, but we're going to start off with our photocopy paper. And what I'm just going to do is I just want to find out the halfway mark. I might just fold that right across. And also we're going to use the grid paper, so your grid paper can come in handy here. So that's just giving me a line, and I'm going to line that up with that halfway mark line on my grid paper. So I want to line it up as close as I possibly can, and I'm just going to use some washi tape. Well, this is not actually washi tape, this is post-it note tape, just at the top and bottom, just to keep that nice and flat for me. Okay, so here we are. I've got our wrong one. This is our adhesive sheet, and I'm going to stick some adhesive sheet on here onto our piece of copy paper, and this is what's going to we're going to adhere our strips to. So we're just using copy paper, and the reason why I'm using copy paper is because it is fairly lightweight. If I used cardstock, I'll be adding more depth or more weight, more thickness to our card front, and I didn't really want to do that. I just want to work on something that's fairly lightweight. Now just push that down quite well with the bone folder, and if you don't have the adhesive sheets, you can just use your multi-purpose glue for this. And I'm just going to make sure that is really and truly adhered. Pull that backing off, and hopefully that's going to all come off. Yep. Okay, so now we've just got a bit of adhesive sheet on there just to get us started, and this is going to, these graph lines are going to add as guide for at least layering my first layer down. With my original card, I started with my Bermuda Bay in the middle and then went out from there. So now I've sort of started with my Bermuda Bay in the middle, then my polished pink either side, and Daffodil Delight, Granny Apple Green, and then Bermuda Bay. You can work it in any combination you want. You don't have to have the same mirror image. You could just start from the middle and just work either way. Just adding, and I'm just going to start with the green, put it through the middle there. Just adding a little bit either side. And we really only want to go probably a little bit wider than what we've put our adhesive sheet goes on there, but that's okay. We can put a little bit of glue on the back there, and I'm going to go, I quite like polished pink next to that Granny Apple Green. And when you put these on, you do want to bring this up as close as possible to your Granny Apple Green. We don't want to have a gap, if we can, in between. Now I need another thin piece of polished pink, taking it up as close to, I'm just going to bring this a little bit closer to me, so I hope you can see this, and I'm just going to stick this in here. As I said, just pushing it up, trying to get it as close to that edges as we possibly can. And I'm going to go for a wider Bermuda Bay. Popping those edges. Now my piece of copy paper here, the size I've cut that is just a quarter sheet, like I said before, so that's your 10.5, so it's a bit wider, or it's the same width as my card, but I am going to cut it down eventually down to 10 centimeters by 14.4. Now I won't do that until I've got all these pieces on, and I'm just a little bit, I'm just going to lift this up a bit. I just want to make sure, no, I can turn this around, because now I've got a few straight lines. I can start working, keeping things nice and straight. Just couldn't quite see that edge there, and this one here Just bringing that all in as tight as possible. Okay, so I might just remove these little pieces now because I don't need to worry about that so much now. I've got my first one down. And we're just going to work out from that center outwards, just adding some different strips. But and I think too, if you added some designer series paper, particularly like the designer series paper in the in our colors, in our neutrals and our basics and so forth, it could be quite, you know, with just a little bit of pattern interest to it, could be quite interesting. And of course you don't have to add the same sort of dye on top. You could pick any sort of dye you want. It's a fairly versatile sort of design. So I'm just going to check how I'm going for width wise. I think one more layer wide might be fine, and I'm going to go for another thin, and I'm going to hopefully got some more. No, it looks like I'm going to go for wide. I don't have any more granny apple green. I want to add a bit more of that granny apple green. I love this color. Now, I don't have any adhesive on the end there, so I'm just going to use my multi-purpose glue here. Now, I hope everyone is doing well. It's a fairly stressful time here in Australia at the moment with what's happening with COVID in all the different states. And I know for myself, I live outside of Sydney, about an hour outside, and we're sort of on the edge, or just on the sort of the countryside of Sydney. So we've had lockdown happening up until about 20 k's from us here. But this morning we've had a couple of venues in Mittagong, which is a couple of towns across from me, but they're only 15 minutes away. That's had some COVID activity, so we'll be waiting and seeing now to see whether we're going to join the lockdown with the rest of the state and country. So, but we'll get through this, that's for certain. Hi Renee, hi Linda and Katrina, how are you all? Okay, so now I've laid all of those across there, so I've got as much on there as what I want. I'm going to get some basic white, and I've got one sheet of basic white here, and what I want to do is I'm going to attach that on either side of these strips. So I'm going to cut this in half, and I'm just going to do that with my scissors. This is going to make my piece here a lot bigger than what I need, but that's okay because we are going to trim all this down. So I'm going to add some adhesive here to my copy paper. Now just remember, all these products that I'm using today, you can purchase them from me if you live here in Australia. And you can purchase them through my online store, which is at michellejatrissa.stampinup.net, and I have added the link onto this blog, so if you do need to find that, that is there. So I'm going to flip that over. I'm going to put some more adhesive on this side. Now, because I can't promise that I have cut this straight, I am adhering the edges that I had cut with my paper trimmer earlier. And we're just going to pop that onto there. So that's now giving us all one layer. I'm just going to use my bone folder just to go over that, just to make sure that that's all adhered well and truly over the top. And we're going to grab my paper trimmer now. Let's just move that out of the road So we've got room, and we're going to trim this down. So what I need to get first is a straight edge to work from. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to line up, because I know my photocopy paper and my basic white has got a fairly straight edge, and I'm just going to line that up on that there and trim that excess basic white away. So I've just lined it up with the edge of the photocopy paper and just trimmed that excess. Now I do need to trim this a little bit more, and I'm going to do that with the other side as well. And I'm also using the lines on my trimmer to line it up with as well. I can't take this right down to the bottom because these edges are all a bit wonky at the moment, but they won't be for long. So we can now put that right up to the very top, nice and straight. And I'm going to just actually come in a little bit because I want to trim this down now to 10 centimeters wide. So just get rid of all of those little bits and pieces. So I've trimmed that edge there. I'm now going to just have a look how straight I have got this. It is a little bit crooked, so I want to trim this down. So I'm going to work all the way around rather than just doing my two sides. And then let me just bring that down there a bit. So I need 14.4. Take that little bit off there, line that up with 10 centimeters now and trim off this edge. So I've done 3 edges, and 14.4, which means just that little bit is going to come off. Okay, so we've now got that at 10 centimeters by 14.4 in depth, and that's going to go onto the front of our card. So that's our piece for our card. Now I've got my card base here, and my card base measures 29.9 centimeters by 10.5, and I've scored it at 14.9 centimeters. Now this is for our Australian A4 cardstock. If you're in America, you could just use a half a sheet of your letter size, which would be 4¼ inches by 11, scored at 5.5. Okay, so we're just going to fold that in half. And crease that with our bone folder. So we've got a nice crease. And I need another piece of A4 basic white, sorry. And I'm just going to trim this down. Now this piece is going to go what we're going to put on the inside of our card. So if you have a look at my original card here, I've done an insert for the inside of my card, and I've just put 2 strips on the bottom. So let's just do that as well now. So we need to trim this down 10 centimeters by your 14.4. Now again, if you're in the States or somewhere that uses the imperial with the letter size, it is just 1/4 inch smaller. So your cardstock, as I said, your card front would be 4¼ by 5.5. So what you would cut this down to is 4 by 5¼ Okay. And we're just going to pop a couple little strips on here. This time I might add polished pink and a little piece of granny apple green. We're going to pop that right along that edge. Just Put a little bit of multi-purpose glue on there. Pop that right on that edge there. Make sure that's well adhered. But that one right up as well. Turn that over, and we're just going to trim that back. You can just do that. You can do this with your paper trimmer or your scissors. I'm just going to do this with my scissors. Just get rid of those little bits because there are a bit of glue on those. Okay, so this one here can go onto the inside of our card. Now you can use your multi-purpose glue, or you can use your seal. I like to use my multi-purpose glue because it allows me to slip this into place. Just don't put on too much glue because otherwise you'll end up with some globs, and it can show through your cardstock, believe it or not. Whoops. Okay, so this gives you a few minutes or seconds just to maneuver that into place where you want it. Push that down. Whoops. Got a bit of glue on there. Okay, so I'm happy with that. Now we're going to run this through our embossing folder. So as I said, we're going to try a different folder this time. We're going to use this one, which is the painted textures. Oh, need to open it up to get it out. There we go. Going to just pop that into there. Not pushing it right up to the top because you have got a section at the top which has got no design on it. So we do want to bring it down a little bit past that and then close that up. And I'm just going to bring over my cut and emboss machine. Just pop that, move everything out so we don't knock everything away. Now we're going to need our plate number 1 and our plate number 4 for this. Sandwich our 3D embossing folder underneath that. I hope you can see that. I'm just going to turn this around a little bit. So what I've got is I've got my plate number 1, my embossing folder with my cardstock inside, and my plate number 4 on top, and just run that through your cut and emboss machine. Now I should only need to run that through once. Just let me fold that up and put that out of the road. We'll need it again in a little while, but just for the moment. Hi Ebony, how are you? Yes, I do love my personalised bone folder. My lovely friend Ebony did this for me the other week. So I won't lose it now, which is great. Okay, so now I've embossed on that, and it just gives you that lovely sort of textured look. And it also too presses all those layers together, and we'll make sure that's all well and truly adhered. So now we're going to grab our card base, and we're going to adhere our card front to that. So just comparing these two. So this one here has probably just got a little bit less texture than what this one. This one's all over floral, and it's very, very textured, whereas this is probably a little bit more subtle, which I think I will be much happier with. But I didn't want to quite go as subtle as, say, the Tasteful Textile 3D embossing folder, which is one of my favorites. I always a first 10 to go to, so it's good to use an embossing folder that I probably haven't used for a while. . So we're going to place that onto there, move that into position, and just press that down. Just give that a good press on the inside as well, just to make sure that's well and truly nice and adhered and smooth. Okay, so now we need to do our die cut. So we are using our Artistically Dies die cut, and got a piece of our basic white here, and I'm going to use some adhesive sheet. I'm going to need a bit more of that one, I think. So this is a really good way of adhering if you're doing a die, especially an intricate die that it's got lots of little pieces being cut out. You can adhere this to your cardstock. Now I just want to put, I'm going to trim this down. So if you put adhesive sheets directly onto the back of your cardstock and then cut it down, the whole thing is covered and you don't have to sort of try to put little bits of glue on all those little fine areas. This just peels off in sections, and we're just going to add a couple of sections to our back of our basic white. Just make sure that I'm going to get enough coverage. Yes, I think I can cut it all out of that piece. That's fine. So let's bring back in our cut and emboss machine. Okay, this time we need plates number 1. We need an adapter plate number 2. Just gives you that little bit more height. And our 2 number 3 plates. So there's our first one. That's our sandwich for that. And we're going to lay that on there with our adhesive sheets down. And I want to make sure that that is going to be down that end. Now, because we have made our cardstock a little bit thicker, I will need to run this through. Normally with this the Stampin' Up cut and emboss machine, I only need to run it through once, but I find with the adhesive sheets I just need to run it through a couple of more times just to make sure that it has actually cut all the way through. So I've just done it there 4 times just to hopefully make sure that's all cut, and we'll just check that. I might just run that through one more. There's a few little spots there that just look like they may not be cut quite through. Okay, that should be right now. So let's just close this up, move it out of the road. Okay. Peel all that off, and I'll get those little bits later on. Now I'm just going to use a brush here just to grab some of the, get some of these bigger pieces out. And that's all coming away really well. Now if you do want a personalised bone folder like I've got, just let me know and I can organise a bone folder for you and to have your name printed on it. I'm sure if I ask nicely, Ebony wouldn't mind doing that for me. I'd have to get a price for you, that is the only thing, because I don't think that's the one thing that we have actually discussed as yet on those. So now I can be a little bit pedantic in getting all those little bits out. Some people don't worry, but I do like to have them gone. But what can happen too, and we'll see how we go, is when you peel the backing off, some of those little bits and pieces will also pop out. But I just want to grab some of, take a pick tool and just push a couple of these ones here out. Okay, let's peel our backing off and see how we went. Hopefully what's left will come out with it. Okay, now I've just got to find where that join is. Take it from down here. Beauty of having long nails, you can get in there and get in between, get all those little bits out. Okay, there's still a couple little pieces in there. Only a couple, and they'll just pop out quite easily. One last one. Perfect. So now just going to bring back in our card and work out where we're going to position our flowers, and I think I want it there. Push that down quite firmly just to make sure that adhesive is stuck to our textured background. Could just open up the card too and give it a good rub on the other side. Oops, we don't want that little bit there. It's looking good, I think. So now all we need to do is do our happy birthday. So I've got a piece of basic black here. I have got my stamp. We're going to use some Versamark and some white embossing powder, and we're going to emboss our happy birthday sentiment. So if you use your basic black, if you've got one of these embossing buddies, you can just tap that over the top. That just takes away any static oils that your fingers could leave on there and helps the embossing powder to only stick to where you want it to stick on the Versamark. So we're just going to stamp up our happy birthday on our Versamark, stamp that down, lift, now I've got a piece of scrap paper here which I've folded in half, and that just helps me to stop losing embossing powder. Just sprinkle that well and truly over. Give it a good flick just to get rid of any excess pieces on there. You can use a brush. Excuse me. And then that powder just will go back into that little pot for another time. Okay, so here's time for our magic. So we've just got my heat gun here. This will be a little bit noisy, so bear with me. And we're just going to heat up our happy birthday, and you'll see that change from a matte white to a shiny white. I've also added a little bit of heat to the back of it because the heat can actually make your cardstock curl a little bit. Whoops, I've got a bit of sticker on me. So there we go, there's our happy birthday. Now we just need to trim that down. So you can use your trimmer, or if you've got one of these little trimmers that we had a couple of years ago, they're really good. Now we want to trim it down with only a couple of millimeters either side of that happy birthday because we want to keep it as narrow as possible. So I'm just going to line up. What I like to do is find an edge, and I'm lining the bottom of the letters up with the slight curve of the guard that's on here. Cut that down. That's nice. And now what I need is a little bit of post-it note to create a bit of a handle, so I can maneuver that in there, and that just gives me a little bit of a handle there to play with. And we're going to do the same thing. I like to find, as I said before, I like to find an edge that I can line up. So I'm using that curve, and I'm just lining up that happy birthday straight with that. Once I'm happy, cut that. Yep. Might just cut a fraction off. These little trimmers are really great because you can actually just take off a very, very slight slither. Unfortunately, we don't sell them anymore. Okay, that's better. So remove that, don't need that anymore. I'm just going to trim this. You can use the scissors just to do this, but since I've got the machine here, I might as well just cut that down on either side. I'm going to use some black dimensionals, pop those onto the back of this. Now they're probably a little bit too wide, so I'll just have a look, see if I've got some black. Yep, I've got some mini ones, black mini dimensionals. Just going to pop a few onto the back of here. Take those backings off. And there's our card. Make sure we've got a happy birthday the right way. And I'm just going to pop it this time, and I might put it, don't want it quite in the middle. Where are we going to put it? I think I just like the same sort of position as last time. So just there, it's sort of in between that Granny Apple Green and Daffodil Delight. And all we need now to do is add a little bit of bling. I'm just going to use the polished pink and use our take a pick tool for this. Just get to pop one of these there, big one, pop a small one next to it there, and another small one at the top. Always best to work in odd numbers and to form like a triangle type of thing. Just bring the eye back into our happy birthday. And there we are, there's our card for today. Nice and quick. So same card, but they both look actually a little bit different, because this one here has got a lot more texture in the background with using the more textured 3D embossing folder, and this one here is just that little bit more subtle with the other less textured embossing folder. So it's up to you which one you want to use. I hope you've enjoyed that today. Let me just flip my camera. Thank you, Ebony. Thank you, Shelley. I'm glad you liked them. So, as I said, that's it for today. I hope you've enjoyed that. Look forward to seeing you all again next week on Friday at 1 o'clock. I hope you can join us, and I hope you have a great week. I think here for the Southern Highlands, it's going to be maybe an interesting next few days for us. So I hope you all take care, keep safe, and keep well. Bye for now.